So welcome to Zambia this time. My name's Honor. I have lived in and worked with Zambia for 20 years now. And also sort of for the last 12, 13 years worked with Zambian ground handlers. I have also just come back from Zambia, although it doesn't sound quite as adventurous, but I went to the Victoria Falls, which I haven't done in January for a really long time, which was fantastic. So as you can see there, Zambia sort of in the middle of Southern Africa, totally landlocked. We've got some quick facts here. Currency is the kwacha, but you can probably get away with dollars in most lodges and camps. It's one of Africa's best secrets, if you like. There are roughly 73 languages spoken in Zambia, of which English is quite a popular one, so you will get by. It's a landlocked country surrounded by 7 other countries, which you can see named there. But as I've got limited time, I'm going to move on to the more important national parks. And then, of course, we've got several, facts that make Zambia very special, one of which is the Victoria Falls, also known traditionally as the Mosi Aitunya, which is called by the locals the smoke that thunders. I'm just going to move my picture on the side there because I can't see myself. There we go. Zambia's got many USPs. I think, as most of you know, the Victoria Falls is one of them, shared on the border with Zimbabwe. It's a brilliant little secret. I think a lot of people are still kind of undecided or unknown about it, but it has got some fantastic national parks. We've got 20, so a lot of, I would say about 30% of Zambia's land is protected, and it's one of the most water-rich countries in Africa with, in fact, 5 major river systems and 3 major lakes. Again, one of the rivers shared with Zimbabwe and the lakes Kariba as well. We've already talked about the Victoria Falls. It's also the home of the original walking safari in the South Luangwa National Park. But of course, that doesn't mean that that's all you can do in the area. So I hasten to add that for those people that sort of think, oh gosh. One thing that reminded me, I was back there for a month in October, and a big thing that I was reminded of is that it's incredible for leopard and wild dog sightings. The packs of wild dogs are growing and growing. Zambia's South Luangwa National Park has been one of the best parks in Africa for wild dog sightings. But when I was there, the Lower Zambezi had consistently over the last year a pack of 22, which grew to about 38 by the time I was there in October, of wild dog that kind of were roaming between the area of Royal, which we'll look at in a minute, and right in the center. So it was amazing to see them bringing down buffalo, because obviously they need quite a big kill for that size of pack. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens with them this year. It's also a birders' paradise. It isn't necessarily an all year round destination, but there are opportunities for earlier in the season during the rains. And I would say that there are over 800 different species that have been recorded in Zambia. And then 2 things that people might not know and are a bit more specialist or not as straightforward to get to. We've got a bat migration which comes down from the Congo. It's the fruit. There's roughly about 8 million straw-coloured fruit bats that come down from the Congo into Kasanka National Park with the first rains. And they stick around for a little while and then they head back up again. And equally, we have the second biggest wildebeest migration after the Serengeti that come into the Liwa Plains. So we've got some quite interesting things that people can think of other than just the Victoria Falls. The traveller, I would say there is something for everyone. It isn't, a lot of people seem to think that it's not a first-time safari destination, but if you're quite outdoorsy and you love walking and you love nature, then I don't see there's any reason why not to come to Zambia, even for a first-time safari. There are a whole variety of accommodation for people. So there are on the luxury side, there are on the mid-market side, but they're charming small lodges. We've got a couple of family houses as well. So there is something for everyone. So I would say for people who are really into safari, the walking safari is obviously very popular. There are great camps for photographers. I would probably say that with some of the activities restricted to 12 years old, it would be more suited to a slightly older family rather than younger kids. But you've got adventure seekers, you've got the birders. I would say there is pretty much something for everybody in Zambia. Talking about access, it is pretty easy to get in. We've got the major airlines coming into Lusaka with Kenya Airways, Emirates, Ethiopian and Qatar. and South African Airways. And then ProFlight will also have a couple of flights up and down from Johannesburg. And then you've got Airlink as well. So you've got some really nice links. And then obviously coming into Livingston, you could also fly into Victoria Falls and do quite an easy crossover into Livingston as well. Within the country, you have got flights. So, I mean, we can see here you've got quite a steady domestic flight schedule with ProFlight. So that allows you, you've got Lusaka right in the middle there, which is the sort of base. And then you've got Livingston, which has a couple of international flights. And indeed, as I said, you can cross over from Victoria Falls. But then from Lusaka, you've got easy access into Mfui, which is the South Luangwa National Park in the top right-hand area. Directly to the right is the Lower Zam, and then down below you've got Livingston. So those are the main three areas, and then Kafui is quite easy for driving. When to go? I would say that the main seasons run from roughly April, which would be when the Lower Zambezi starts, right through till October, mid-November. So what you have got is you've got the sort of the rains, which you'll find around Independence Day, which is the 24th of October. You'll generally get a rain coming in or two. And then from there, the rains sort of are big thunderstorms in the afternoon. This is quite typical, if you like, but you never know because it always changes. And then January, February with most of the rain, with the river, the Zambezi River and the Victoria Falls then coming to their peak levels in May, which by all accounts from where and I was there in January, is rising quite steadily. Temperatures, they can get sort of down to 5 degrees in winter at night, but then from about 10:30 in the morning, 11 o'clock, it'll come up to about 25 degrees again. And then in October time, which is just before the rains, it is hot, it is super dry. So it can be anywhere from about 35 degrees up to 45 degrees and a little bit more, but you are at your peak wildlife sightings, which is in contrast to the Victoria Falls, which are at their emptiest. So that's the one thing to note about that. And then in the green season, you do have various camps that open up. So you've got the Rivers and Rainbows in the South Luangwa, and there are one or two others. So there are options for those months as well, especially in terms of how lush it is. The skies are amazing, and birding, of course, as well. But you can do wildlife viewing all year round. Oops, sorry, how do I go? Oh, there we go. So there we go. We're going to look at very quickly 4 areas. We've got the South Luangwa National Park, which is probably the most popular with, as we've talked about, the origins of the walking safari, but there are all sorts of options in terms of activities and lodges and camps. A lot of the wildlife viewing there is revolved around the Luangwa River. So as it gets drier in October, you'll see all the wildlife starting to congregate around that river. In contrast, you then have the Lower Zambezi National Park, where the rivers aren't quite as steep and low in dry and low and rain season. So therefore, you will be able to get onto the river and enjoy a lot of activities from the river. So you will get to see quite a lot of your ellies, your buffaloes, your crocs, your hippos. You'll be able to get out and do a bigger variety of activities as well. But it's quite cool, the contrast between those two parks. Then you've got the Kafui National Park, which is, in fact, well, the largest park in Zambia, and also one of the largest in Africa. It is an insanely diverse park, which has sort of, it's an old national park, but it's kind of been left to its devices. And then more recently, you've had a variety of camps that have come in halfway through the park and into the north, where you've got the Basanga Plains. And they've been working really hard to sort of protect those areas and bring wildlife is coming back into those areas. So it's a really interesting, plus it's only about a 3.5-4 hour drive from Lusaka into the sort of the middle area of the park from where you can go and explore. But it's still a very vast park with such different landscapes. So it's a really interesting range of wildlife to be seen there as well. Like you'll be able to see your sable, your rowan antelope. It's also the only park where you will be able to see cheetah alongside Liwa Plains as well. And then down south, we've got Livingston with the Victoria Falls and the huge amount of adrenaline activities as well as river. So just moving on quickly, we just talked about the South Luangwa National Park. It is an incredible park, as we already talked about. It's one of the sort of most popular parks to go and see wild dog. They've got some incredibly beautiful leopard sightings. You've got incredibly diverse landscapes because it sits sort of in between an escarpment in the northeastern part coming down to the Luangwa River. So, you know, a lot of the camps are quite spread out. And the joy of this area, in fact, is to sort of pick a company or pick a camp and then be able to do that old-fashioned style of walking. Not quite old-fashioned in that your luggage will follow you, your luggage will be taken, but the idea is that you get out on foot, and you can get out on foot and really see some amazing big game. In Zambia, you will always be with your guide and a wildlife scout. And so he is parks employed. So he will be armed, making sure that everyone's safe, with the guide able to focus on the guests. So that is typical for any walking safari in Zambia. As I said, we've got the wide variety, but we've got also a lot of traditional bush camps in this area where you will be able to stay, which are 3 to 5 rooms big, but you've also got some of the more luxury camps as well. But the ideal combination here would be to combine some camps so that you get a real feel for that walking safari, which would range somewhere between about 8 kilometers to 15 kilometers, roughly about 15 and 3 hours walking. I've got to move it on a bit quick, so I'm practicing with the 15. There's a lot to be said. There are some amazing endemic species in this area. But as Sammy knows, there's a bigger, longer presentation on this for you later. We've then got the Lower Zambezi National Park. It's a lovely 25-minute flight from Lusaka. It sits very sweetly in between the Zambezi Escarpment and the Zambezi River, and then looks out over Mana Pools on the other side. It is amazing for elephant sightings, fantastic for leopard sightings, and just a slightly slower pace, I would say, than the South Luangwa, which is why it makes for a really nice combination. Activities here would be walking, game drives, a bit of tiger fishing, a bit of river safaris, and a bit of canoeing as well, if you're up for the adrenaline adventure. But it's also nice to just sit back and relax, because there are some amazing winter thorn forests where you can just see animals chilling out underneath. So it's a brilliant park for that. Kafue National Park, again, lots of amazing wild dogs. Cheetah in the north and Basanga Plains, a vastly diverse park. So a lot to be said about it, but definitely worth looking at. There are some amazing combinations between the Lower Zambezi, South Luangwa and Kafue. So it's definitely one and African parks have also just come into Kafue National Park. So it'd be really interesting to see how the future goes of this. And then finally, we've got Victoria Falls and the Mosi Aitunya National Park. It's a small park where you can see white rhino, but for the rest, and I did actually do a little walking safari with the rhino, so there's some really healthy rhinos in there. But I would say more often than not, people are coming here, and I would say that your most popular activities would be to maybe do a swim, a flight, and a field of Victoria Falls is what I would call it. So I did a little walk along the falls, got totally drenched. And of course, the visas into Zambia at the moment have been released. So therefore, it is also very easy to just cross across to Victoria Falls and see the falls on the Zimbabwean side, and then come back and have Livingston Island visit on this side and get a bit of a feel for both of it as well. And then what else? We've got helicopter flights, we've got microlight flights. I say generally there's a good variety of things for everyone to do. There's an awful lot to be said. I think, you know, that there are some very nice itineraries where you can combine them. The other thing to mention is that, with Mike talking in a little bit, Lake Malawi is a really nice beach option to Zambia. So with that, you've got a really nice full itinerary combining some really nice areas, different experiences, along with a little bit of beach at the end in Lake Malawi. And if you don't want to end up at the beach, then Livingston's quite a nice place to end, where you can have a few more days. There's a lot of lodges and camps which do a lot on the gastro, the relaxation, spa treatments and things like that. So thank you very much.